I never believed in fate until the night I whispered for help, and the wrong man answered. The bar was called Obscura, one of those upscale places in Lower Manhattan where the lighting was dim enough to hide secrets, but bright enough to admire the expensive liquor lining the mirrored shelves. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be home, grading papers, maybe nursing a glass of wine while my cat judged me from the windowsill. But my friend Natalie had insisted, and I'd caved because I hadn't left my apartment for anything other than work in 3 months. "You need to live a little, Claire," she'd said, tugging me through the brass-framed doors. "You're 28, not 80. I'd laughed then. I wasn't laughing now. The man who'd been buying me drinks for the past hour had started as charming. Handsome in that clean-cut Wall Street way, tailored suit, confident smile, the kind of guy who knew exactly how impressive his job title sounded. But somewhere between the second gin and tonic and the third, his hand had found my thigh. When I'd moved it away, he'd put it back. Harder. Natalie had disappeared to the bathroom 10 minutes ago and my phone was dead. My pulse hammered in my throat as his fingers dug into my leg, his breath hot against my ear. "Come on, Claire, don't be like that. I paid for your drinks." "I didn't ask you to." My voice was steady, but my hands trembled as I tried to pry his grip loose. He was stronger than he looked. "You didn't say no either." Panic clawed up my chest. The bar was crowded, bodies pressed together under the low throb of electronic music, but no one was looking at us. No one cared. I was just another woman in a corner booth with a man who thought he owned her because he'd handed over his credit card. I turned my head toward the bar, where a young bartender was shaking a cocktail, his face lit by the neon glow of the shelves behind him. He looked kind. Safe. I leaned forward, my voice barely audible over the music. "Help." It was a whisper. A breath. I didn't even know if he'd heard me, but someone else did. The air shifted. I felt it before I saw him. A presence that moved through the room like a cold wind, parting the crowd without a word. The man beside me stiffened, his hand suddenly gone from my thigh. I turned, confused, and my breath caught. He stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than my yearly salary. His dark hair was swept back, sharp jawline shadowed by the low light, and his eyes, God, his eyes, were the color of smoke and steel, fixed on the man beside me with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "She said no." His voice was low, calm, but it carried a weight that made every nerve in my body go still. The Wall Street guy sputtered, his confidence draining. "This is none of your business, man. You're leaving." It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command, spoken with the kind of authority that didn't need to be loud. The man beside me looked like he wanted to argue, but something in the stranger's gaze made him think better of it. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his drink, and muttered something I didn't catch before disappearing into the crowd. I sat frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack a rib. The stranger's gaze shifted to me, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. He was devastating. Not handsome in the safe, forgettable way the other man had been, but beautiful in a way that felt dangerous, like staring at a blade and wanting to touch it anyway. "Are you hurt?" His question caught me off guard. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, then extended a hand. "Come with me." My voice cracked. "I'm waiting for my friend." "She's at the bar." He nodded toward Natalie, who was laughing with someone near the entrance, oblivious. "You're safer with me." That should have been a warning. A red flag so bright it could have been seen from space. But when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see cruelty. I saw something else. Something guarded and raw, like he understood what it felt like to be trapped. I took his hand. His palm was warm, calloused, and his grip was firm but careful as he helped me out of the booth. He didn't let go as he led me through the crowd, his body a shield between me and the press of strangers. No one looked at us. No one dared. We stopped at a corner table near the back, partially hidden by a velvet curtain. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat on the dark wood surface beside a folded newspaper. He'd been sitting here, I realized, watching. "Sit," he said, pulling out a chair. I obeyed without thinking, and he took the seat across from me. Up close, he was even more striking. High cheekbones, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, and those eyes that seemed to see straight through me. "What's your name?" he asked. "Claire." It came out barely louder than a whisper. "Claire." He repeated it slowly like he was tasting it. "I'm Dante." Dante. The name fit him. Dark, dangerous, impossible to ignore. "Thank you," I managed. "For that?" "Don't thank me." His jaw tightened. "Men like him don't deserve to breathe the same air as you." The intensity in his voice made my pulse spike again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else entirely. "Why did you help me?" I asked. "You don't know me." His gaze held mine, and for a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, "Because you asked." The music around us seemed to fade. The world narrowed to just the two of us, sitting in the shadows, and I felt it. A pull I couldn't explain, magnetic and terrifying, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump. "Who are you?" I whispered. Something flickered in his eyes. Regret? Maybe? Or warning? He leaned back, his expression shuddering. "Someone you should stay away from." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, his jaw clenching, and when he looked back at me, the warmth in his gaze was gone, replaced by something cold and unreachable. "Your friend's looking for you." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "Go home, Claire. Forget you met me." He turned to leave, and I should have let him. I should have grabbed Natalie and run as far from this bar, and him, as possible. But I didn't. "Wait." He stopped, his back to me, and when he spoke, his voice was rough. "Don't follow me, Claire, trust me. You don't want to know where I go." Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd like smoke. I sat there, trembling, my heart racing, and I knew, deep in my bones, that nothing in my life would ever be the same. Because Dante was right. I should have stayed away, but I already knew I wouldn't. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Dante, standing in the shadows with that unreadable expression, his voice low and commanding as he made a man twice his arrogance disappear with just a look. I kept replaying the moment he'd taken my hand, the way his touch had felt both protective and possessive, like I'd become something precious the second I'd whispered for help. "Someone you should stay away from." The warning echoed in my mind as I lay tangled in my sheets, staring at the ceiling of my tiny Brooklyn apartment. Morning light was starting to creep through the blinds, painting pale stripes across the walls, but I felt no closer to answers than I had hours ago. Who was he? Why had he been sitting alone in that corner, watching? And why did it feel like he'd seen straight through me, past the careful walls I'd built around myself? By the time I dragged myself to work Monday morning, I was running on coffee and stubborn determination to forget the entire night. I taught English literature at a small charter school in Brooklyn, safe, predictable, the kind of life where the biggest drama was whether a student actually read The Great Gatsby or just watched the movie. I liked it that way. Quiet, controlled. But the universe had other plans. "Did you see the news?" My colleague Marcus burst into the teacher's lounge during lunch, his phone clutched in his hand, eyes wide. I looked up from my sad desk salad. "What news?" "There was a shooting last night, down by the waterfront." He turned his phone toward me and my stomach dropped. The headline read, "Rival gang leader found dead in apparent mob hit." Below it was a grainy photo of a warehouse, police tape strung across the entrance, and a body bag being loaded into a coroner's van. "They're saying it's connected to the Valenti family," Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a whisper like saying the name too loud might summon them. "You know, the Mafia family that runs half the city." My hands went cold. "Valenti?" I repeated. "Yeah, Dante Valenti. He's the head of the family now. Took over after his father died 2 years ago. Apparently, he's even more ruthless than the old man." Marcus scrolled through his phone. "There are rumors he's been consolidating power, taking out anyone who threatens his territory. The cops can't touch him, though. He's too connected." The room tilted. Dante Valenti. "Claire, you okay?" Marcus peered at me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile, my heart hammering. "Yeah, just didn't sleep well." But I wasn't okay. Because the man who'd saved me, who'd looked at me like I mattered, who'd told me to stay away, was a monster. A mafia boss. And I'd let him touch me. I told myself to forget it. To pretend Friday night never happened. That Dante Valenti was just a name in a news article. Someone who existed in a world so far removed from mine that our paths would never cross again. But on Wednesday, everything changed. I was locking up my classroom after a long day, my bag heavy with essays to grade, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. "Hello?" Silence. Then, low and familiar. "Claire." My breath stopped. "Dante? I need you to listen carefully." His voice was clipped, urgent in a way that sent ice down my spine. "You're being followed." "What?" I spun around, scanning the empty hallway. "What are you talking about?" "There's a black sedan parked across from your school. 2 men inside. They've been there since 3 o'clock. My blood turned cold. "How do you know that?" "Because I'm watching them." A pause. "And I'm watching you." I should have hung up, should have called the police. But instead, I found myself whispering, "Why are they following me?" "Because you were seen with me." His tone hardened. "Friday night. Someone took a photo. Now they think you're leverage." Leverage. The word hit me like a fist. "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand. You need to do exactly what I say." His voice dropped, commanding. "Walk out the front entrance. Don't look at the sedan. My car is 3 spaces down. Black SUV, tinted windows. Get in the back seat. Now." "I'm not getting in a car with you. Claire." He cut me off, and there was something raw in his voice now, something almost desperate. "If they take you, I can't protect you. Please." That word, please, broke through my fear. I grabbed my bag and walked. The hallway felt longer than it ever had, every step echoing in the silence. When I pushed through the front doors, the autumn air bit at my skin, and I saw it immediately. The black sedan, windows dark, engine idling. 3 spaces down, just like he'd said, was the SUV. I didn't let myself think. I just moved. The back door opened before I reached it, and I slid inside, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The door slammed shut, and the SUV pulled away from the curb smoothly, leaving the sedan behind. I turned, and there he was. Dante sat beside me in the back seat, dressed in a dark suit, his expression carved from stone. But his eyes, God, his eyes were blazing. "You're insane," I breathed. "You're alive." He didn't look away. That's all that matters. "Why are they after me?" "Because I made a mistake." His jaw clenched. "I should have stayed away from you. But I didn't." "So this is your fault?" "Yes." He didn't flinch. "And I'm going to fix it." "How?" He leaned forward, his gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that made my chest ache. by keeping you close." The air between us crackled, heavy and dangerous. I realized with startling clarity that I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of how badly I wanted to trust him. "Where are we going?" I whispered. Dante's expression softened, just barely. "Somewhere they'll never find you." The SUV turned onto the highway, the city disappearing behind us, and I knew, whatever came next, there was no going back. The estate appeared like something out of a dream, or a nightmare, depending on how you looked at it. We'd driven for nearly an hour, leaving the city behind until the road narrowed and trees closed in on either side, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the fading daylight. When the SUV finally slowed, massive iron gates loomed ahead, flanked by stone pillars and security cameras that tracked our approach. The gates opened without a word from Dante, and we glided through. The driveway stretched impossibly long, lined with manicured hedges and antique lampposts that flickered to life as dusk settled. Then the house came into view, and my breath caught. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion. 3 stories of pale stone and arched windows, balconies wrapped in wrought iron, and a fountain at the center of the circular drive where water cascaded over marble angels. It looked like something from another century, beautiful and cold, a fortress disguised as elegance. "This is where you live?" I whispered. Dante's gaze didn't leave the window. "This is where you'll stay." The SUV stopped at the entrance, and before I could process what was happening, Dante was out, rounding the vehicle to open my door. He extended his hand, and I hesitated only a moment before taking it. His grip was firm, grounding, and when I stepped out into the cool evening air, I felt the weight of eyes on me. Men in dark suits stood at intervals along the perimeter, their faces impassive, their hands resting near concealed weapons. Guards. Of course there were guards. "Come," Dante said quietly, guiding me up the stone steps. The front doors opened before we reached them, revealing a grand foyer that stole what little breath I had left. A chandelier dripping with crystals hung from the vaulted ceiling, casting fractured light across marble floors and a sweeping staircase that curved upward like something from a fairy tale. Paintings lined the walls, old masters I realized with a jolt, and fresh flowers spilled from vases on ornate side tables. It was breathtaking. It was terrifying. "Dante." An older man appeared from a side hallway, his silver hair combed back, his suit immaculate. His sharp eyes landed on me, assessing. "This is unexpected." "She's under my protection, Matteo." Dante's tone left no room for argument. "Prepare the East Wing guest suite. No one enters without my permission." Matteo's gaze flickered to me again, something unreadable passing through his expression before he nodded. "Of course." He disappeared as silently as he'd arrived, and I turned to Dante, my pulse racing. "I can't stay here." "You don't have a choice." He finally looked at me, and the intensity in his eyes made my knees weak. "The men following you work for the Corsini family. They're rivals. Dangerous. If they get to you, they'll use you to get to me." "Then let me go home." "I won't tell anyone." "They already know where you live, Claire." His voice was hard. "They know where you work. Where your friends live. Natalie's apartment building? They have surveillance there too." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "Natalie is safe. I have people watching her." He stepped closer, and suddenly the space between us felt impossibly small. "But you? You're not safe anywhere except here." "Why?" The question burst out of me, raw and desperate. "Why do you even care? You don't know me." For a long moment he didn't answer. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. "I know enough." Before I could demand an explanation, he turned toward the staircase. "Matteo will show you to your room. Dinner is at 8. I'll have clothes sent up." "Dante." He stopped, his back to me, and when he spoke, His voice was rougher than before. "Don't try to leave, Claire. The gates are guarded, the grounds are monitored. You'll only hurt yourself trying." Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down a side corridor, and I was left standing alone in a palace that felt more like a prison. The guest suite was more luxurious than any hotel I'd ever stayed in. A four-poster bed dominated the room, draped in silk the color of cream, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens lit by soft golden lights. There was a sitting area with velvet chairs, a fireplace that crackled to life at the touch of a button, and an ensuite bathroom with a clawfoot tub that could fit 3 people. I should have felt pampered. Instead, I felt trapped. I paced the room as the sky outside darkened, my mind spinning. This was insane. I was a schoolteacher from Brooklyn, not someone who got tangled up with the Mafia. I didn't belong here. Why in this world of wealth and violence and men who made people disappear with a single look? But as much as I wanted to run, a darker part of me, one I didn't want to acknowledge, was curious. Who was Dante Valenti really? The ruthless mob boss the news described? Or the man who'd saved me without hesitation? A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. The door opened and a young woman entered, carrying a garment bag and a tray of food. "Mr. Valenti asked me to bring these, miss." Her voice was polite but cautious, like she wasn't sure what to make of me. She hung the garment bag in the closet and set the tray on the small table by the window. "Dinner will be served in the main dining room at 8, but he thought you might be hungry now." I managed a weak smile. "Thank you." She nodded and left. Maria and I unzipped the garment bag with trembling hands. Inside was a dress, simple but elegant, deep emerald green with long sleeves and a hem that would fall just above my knees. It fit perfectly when I tried it on, like he'd somehow known my exact size. That should have unsettled me. Instead, it made my pulse quicken. At 8 o'clock sharp, I made my way downstairs, following the sound of low voices to a dining room that could have seated 30 people. But only one place was set. At the far end of a long mahogany table across from where Dante sat, a glass of red wine in his hand. He stood when I entered, his gaze sweeping over me in a way that made heat crawl up my neck. "You look beautiful." I didn't know what to say to that, so I sat. Dinner was served in silence at first. Roasted chicken, vegetables that tasted like they'd been picked that morning, wine that was probably older than me. I could feel his eyes on me, studying, waiting. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Why am I really here, Dante?" He set down his glass, his expression unreadable. "Because I couldn't let them take you." That's not an answer. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he wouldn't respond. Then, "You remind me of something I thought I'd lost." "What?" His gaze met mine, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke me. Hope. The word hung between us, heavy and aching, and I realized with terrifying clarity that I was in far more danger than I'd thought. Because the man across from me wasn't just a monster, he was human. And that made him so much more dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Knowing that beyond the silk curtains and luxurious sheets, armed men patrolled the grounds, protecting me from an enemy I'd never met? Knowing that somewhere, in this sprawling mansion, Dante Valenti, a man whose name made hardened criminals flinch, was awake too, carrying the weight of a world I didn't understand? I kept replaying dinner. The way he'd looked at me when he said I reminded him of hope. The rawness in his voice, like the admission had cost him something. Who had he been before he became this? Morning came with soft autumn light filtering through the windows and another knock at my door. The same young woman from yesterday entered with a breakfast tray and a cautious smile. "Mr. Valenti asked if you'd join him in the south garden after you eat, miss." I nodded, too exhausted to argue, and she disappeared like a ghost. And the breakfast was perfect. Fresh fruit, buttery croissants, coffee that tasted like heaven. But I barely touched it. My stomach was in knots as I dressed in the jeans and sweater that had been laid out for me, clearly purchased overnight in my exact size. The south garden was even more stunning in daylight. Stone pathways wound through beds of late-blooming roses, past a koi pond where orange and white fish drifted lazily, and beneath trellises heavy with ivy. At the center stood Dante, his back to me, staring at something I couldn't see. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and even from behind he looked like he carried the weight of empires. "You came." He didn't turn around. Did I have a choice? A ghost of a smile crossed his profile as he glanced back. No. I moved closer, and that's when I saw what he'd been looking at. A marble bench, old and weathered, with something carved into the stone. I knelt to read it. Per sempre, mia luz. Forever, my light. My mother's, Dante said quietly. She used to sit here every morning. Said the garden reminded her of Italy, of a life before all this. I looked up at him, surprised by the softness in his voice. Where is she now? Dead. The word was flat, emotionless. Cancer took her when I was 16. My father was too busy building his empire to notice she was fading. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. He turned to face me fully and the walls were back up, his expression carved from ice. She's the lucky one. She got out. And you didn't? His jaw clenched. I was born into this, Claire. There's no getting out. Not for me. Everyone has a choice. No. He cut me off, stepping closer, and suddenly the air between us was electric. People like you have choices. People like me have obligations, responsibilities, blood debts that can never be repaid. Then why save me? I demanded, my voice rising. If your world is so hopeless, why pull me into it? For a moment, he just stared at me, something wild and desperate flickering in his eyes. Then, so quietly, it was almost a whisper. Because for 1 second when you looked at me in that bar, you didn't see a monster. My heart cracked. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, and whatever he saw on the screen made his entire body go rigid. What is it? I asked. They made a move. His voice was cold now, lethal. The Corsinis. They hit one of my warehouses an hour ago. Fear spiked through me. Is anyone hurt? 3 of my men are in the hospital. 1 might not make it. He was already walking, his strides long and purposeful, and I hurried to keep up. What are you going to do? He stopped so abruptly I nearly ran into him. When he turned, the man who'd spoken about his mother was gone, replaced by something darker, more dangerous. What I always do, I'm going to remind them why you don't cross the Valenti family. Dante, stay in the house, Claire. It was a command, not a request. Matteo will be with you. Don't go near the windows. Don't answer the door. Don't do anything until I get back. When will that be? His gaze softened, just for a heartbeat. When it's done. Then he was gone, disappearing into the mansion, and I was left standing in the garden, fear and something else. Something I didn't want to name, churning in my chest. The hours crawled by like days. Matteo stationed himself outside my suite, his presence both comforting and suffocating. I tried to distract myself, reading from the library Dante had mentioned, grading the essays I'd shoved in my bag days ago, but nothing worked. My mind kept circling back to him. Was he safe? Was he hurt? Was he doing something I could never forgive? It was nearly midnight when I heard the front doors slam open. Voices echoed through the hallway, sharp, urgent, and I was out of my room before I could think twice. Miss, wait, Matteo called, but I was already running. I found them in the foyer. Dante stood in the center, blood splattered across his white shirt, his knuckles raw and bleeding. 2 of his men flanked him, equally battered, and a third. God, The third was being carried in on a stretcher, his face pale as death. My stomach lurched. Dante's gaze snapped to me and something like fury flashed in his eyes. "I told you to stay upstairs. You're hurt. I'm fine." He barked orders to his men in rapid Italian, his voice steady despite the blood, and they moved like a machine, efficient and practiced. But I saw the way he favored his left side, the way his jaw was clenched against pain. When the stretcher disappeared down a hallway and the other men dispersed, I crossed the marble floor, ignoring Matteo's protests, and stopped in front of Dante. "You're not fine." His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw exhaustion there, bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. "Go to bed. Claire. Not until you let me help." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do." I stepped closer, my voice dropping. "Please." That word again. It seemed to undo him. He exhaled slowly, the fight draining out of him, and nodded. I found a first aid kit in one of the bathrooms and led him to the library, where a fire crackled in the hearth. He sank into a leather chair without protest, and I knelt in front of him, my hands shaking as I cleaned the blood from his knuckles. "This is going to sting," I warned. "I've had worse." I believed him. We didn't speak as I worked, but the silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, charged, every brush of my fingers against his skin sending sparks up my arms. When I finished bandaging his hands, I looked up and found him watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Because you saved me." I swallowed hard. "And because, despite everything, I don't think you're the monster you pretend to be." His hand came up, his thumb brushing my cheek so gently it made my breath hitch. "You should be terrified of me, Claire." "I know." "Then why aren't you?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, and I was too afraid to say it. So instead, I whispered, "What happened tonight?" His hand fell away, and the shutters came down again. "I made sure they'll think twice before coming for you again." And somehow, that terrified me more than anything. The days blurred together after that night. I fell into a strange rhythm at the estate. Mornings in the garden, afternoons in the sprawling library where I discovered Dante had an impressive collection of classic literature. A surprise that unsettled me more than the guns. And evenings that inevitably ended with the two of us in the same room, circling each other like planets caught in an unstable orbit. He was different now. Guarded, yes, but softer around the edges when it was just us. He'd find me reading and sit across from me without a word, working through documents or taking calls in rapid Italian. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher, hunger and restraint warring in his eyes. It terrified me how much I'd started to crave those moments. A week after the warehouse attack, everything shifted. I was in the library when Dante appeared in the doorway, dressed in a charcoal suit that made him look every inch the dangerous man he was. But there was tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his mouth that set my nerves on edge. "Get dressed," he said without preamble. "Something formal. We're going out." I lowered my book. "Where?" "A charity gala downtown. I have to make an appearance." His jaw clenched. "And you're coming with me." "Why would I?" "Because the Corsinis will be there." His gaze locked onto mine. "And I need them to see that you're under my protection. That touching you means war." My stomach dropped. "You're using me as bait." "I'm using you as a message." He stepped into the room and the air grew thicker. "There's a difference." "Not to me." "Claire." He crossed to me in 3 strides, and suddenly he was close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke. "I won't let anything happen to you. But if they think you're just some woman I'm hiding away, they'll keep coming. This ends it." "And if it doesn't?" His hand came up, fingers grazing my jaw, tilting my face toward his, and the touch was gentle, but his eyes blazed. Then I burned their world to the ground. I should have been horrified. Instead, heat coiled low in my belly. The dress waiting in my room was midnight blue, floor-length with a slit that ran dangerously high up my thigh. It clung to every curve, the neckline just low enough to be daring, and when I slipped it on, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me in the mirror. I looked like I belonged in his world. That thought should have scared me. Instead, it made my pulse race. Dante was waiting at the bottom of the grand staircase when I descended, and the way his gaze raked over me, slow, possessive, starving, made my knees weak. "You're dangerous in that dress," he murmured as I reached him. "Good." I met his eyes, surprised by my own boldness. Maybe I should be. Something dark and approving flickered across his face. He offered his arm, and I took it, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric. The drive into the city was quiet, but the tension in the SUV was suffocating. Dante sat beside me in the back, his hand resting on the seat between us, close enough to touch, but not quite. I could feel the heat radiating from him, the coiled energy of a predator preparing to walk into enemy territory. "What do I need to know?" I asked. "Stay close to me. Don't wander off. Don't talk to anyone I don't introduce you to." He glanced at me. "And no matter what happens, don't look afraid." "I'm not afraid." His eyes searched mine. "You should be." "You keep saying that." I turned to face him fully. "But you're the one who keeps protecting me." "That doesn't mean I'm safe. Mean Claire." His voice dropped, rough and raw. "I'm the most dangerous thing in your life right now." "I know. And God help me, I did." The gala was held at a historic hotel in Midtown, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers and waiters gliding through the crowd with champagne. Women dripped in diamonds, men in tuxedos exchanged business cards and veiled threats, and at the center of it all was a world I'd only seen in movies. Beautiful, glittering, and rotten beneath the surface. Dante's hand settled on the small of my back as we entered, and every head turned. I felt their eyes on me, assessing, curious, predatory. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a dark tide. "Who is she? Valenti brought a date?" "She's either very brave or very stupid." Dante's grip tightened, a silent reassurance, and he led me through the room with the confidence of a king entering his court. We stopped near the bar, and that's when I saw them. Two men across the room, watching us with cold, calculating eyes. One was older, silver-haired with a scar running down his neck. The other was younger, handsome in a cruel way, with a smile that made my skin crawl. "Corsinus," Dante murmured, his lips near my ear. "The older one is Enzo. The younger is his son, Luca." My breath caught. "They're the ones—" "Yes." His hand slid around my waist, pulling me against his side. "And they're about to learn you're untouchable." Before I could respond, Enzo Corsini was walking toward us, Luca trailing behind, and every instinct screamed at me to run, but I stayed. "Valenti!" Enzo's voice was smooth, practiced. "What a surprise to see you here. And with such lovely company." His gaze slid over me like oil, and I fought the urge to recoil. "Enzo?" Dante's tone was ice. I didn't realize trash was invited. Luca's smile sharpened. "Careful, Valenti. You're outnumbered tonight." "Am I?" Dante's laugh was low, dangerous. "Count again." I glanced around and realized with a jolt that scattered throughout the crowd were men I recognized from the estate. Dante's men, dressed in tuxedos but unmistakably armed. Enzo's jaw tightened. "You always did have a flair for the dramatic. And you always underestimated me." Dante's arm tightened around me. "This is Claire. She's under my protection. Spread the word. Anyone who touches her answers to me." Luca's gaze lingered on me, and something ugly flickered there. She doesn't look like much. Dante moved so fast I barely saw it. 1 second he was beside me, the next he had Luca by the collar, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Say that again, and I'll cut out your tongue and mail it to your father. The room went silent. Luca paled and Enzo stepped forward, hands raised in mock surrender. Easy, Valenti. No need for bloodshed. We understand. His smile was poisonous. She's yours. Dante released Luca with a shove and turned back to me, his expression softening just enough that only I could see it. Let's go. We left the gala in a storm of whispers, and I didn't breathe again until we were back in the SUV, the city lights blurring past the windows. Are you okay? Dante asked, his hand finding mine in the darkness. I nodded, even though I was trembling. You were incredible, he said quietly. You didn't flinch. I was terrified. I know. His thumb traced circles on my palm. But you didn't show it. That takes strength. I looked at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd upended my entire life, and I felt something crack open inside me. Dante, I whispered. What are we doing? His gaze met mine, and the vulnerability there nearly broke me. I don't know, but I can't stop. Neither could I, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. I woke to shouting. It was barely dawn, the sky outside still bruised with purple and gray, and the sound of raised voices echoed through the halls like gunfire. I threw on a robe and rushed out of my suite, my heart hammering. Matteo stood at the top of the stairs, his face grim. Miss, you should go back. What's happening? Before he could answer, Dante's voice roared from below, in speaking rapid Italian laced with fury. I pushed past Matteo and descended the stairs, ignoring his protests. The scene in the foyer made my blood run cold. Dante stood in the center, his shirt half-buttoned, hair disheveled like he'd been dragged from sleep. Around him were 4 of his men, and on the marble floor, bleeding from a split lip, was a stranger I'd never seen before. Young, terrified, and clearly one of Dante's own. You let them in? Dante's voice was lethal. You let them breach the south gate? They said they had intel, the man stammered. And you believe them? Dante crouched, his face inches from the man's. You put her at risk because you were stupid enough to fall for a setup? Her. He meant me. Dante, I said, stepping forward. His head whipped toward me and the rage in his eyes froze me in place. But beneath it, I saw something else. Fear. Go upstairs, Claire. What happened? Now. It wasn't a request, but I couldn't move. Because in that moment I saw what he was. Not the man who'd saved me, not the one who'd held my hand in the darkness, but the ruthless crime lord who ruled through fear and violence. He turned back to the man on the floor. Get him out of my sight. I'll deal with him later. 2 men hauled the injured guard away, and Dante finally looked at me again. The rage was gone, replaced by exhaustion so deep it carved lines into his face. You should have stayed upstairs. What happened? I asked again, quieter this time. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. The Corsinis tried to infiltrate the estate last night. One of my men let them get close before we caught them. His jaw clenched. They were after you. The floor tilted beneath me. How close did they get? Close enough that if I'd been 5 minutes slower, you'd be gone. His voice cracked on the last word, and he turned away, his shoulders rigid. This is my fault. I should have moved you somewhere safer. There is nowhere safer, I whispered. You said that yourself. Then maybe I should have let you go. The words hit like a slap. What? He turned, and the look in his eyes was devastating. Maybe I'm selfish for keeping you here. Maybe you'd be better off if I'd never... Don't. I closed the distance between us, my hands fisting in his shirt. Don't you dare say that. Claire, I don't want to be anywhere else. The confession ripped out of me, raw and honest. I should. I should be terrified and begging to leave, but I'm not. And because for the first time in my life, I feel alive? He finished, his voice rough. Yes. His hands came up, framing my face, and the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to humanity, made my chest ache. You're going to destroy me, he whispered. Then let me. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, consuming. Years of loneliness and violence and need poured into the way his mouth claimed mine. I kissed him back just as fiercely, my fingers tangling in his hair, and when he lifted me, I wrapped my legs around his waist without thinking. He carried me upstairs, kicking open a door I'd never entered. His room, massive and dark, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. He set me on the bed, and I pulled him down with me, needing to feel his weight, his heat. I'm the proof that he was real. We broke apart gasping, and his forehead rested against mine. If we do this, he said, voice ragged, there's no going back. I don't want to go back. His eyes searched mine, and whatever he saw there made him groan. You're going to ruin me, Claire. Good. This time, when he kissed me, it was slower, deeper, and I let myself drown in him. I woke hours later, tangled in sheets that smelled like him, sunlight streaming through the windows. Dante was gone, but I could still feel the phantom touch of his hands, the way he'd whispered my name like a prayer. I should have felt ashamed, conflicted. Instead, I felt whole. I dressed and went looking for him, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks, but when I found him in his office, the look on his face stopped me cold. He sat behind a massive desk, each staring at a folder open in front of him, his expression carved from stone. Dante? He didn't look up. You should have told me. My stomach dropped. Told you what? Finally, his gaze lifted and it was ice. Who you really are. He turned the folder toward me and my world imploded. Inside were photos. Of me, but from years ago. With a man I'd tried to forget. Articles about a trial, headlines screaming about fraud and corruption. And at the center of it all, a name I'd buried so deep I thought it was gone forever. David Brennan, my ex-fiancé. You were engaged to a federal prosecutor, Dante said, his voice devoid of emotion. One who built his career taking down organized crime families. One who's currently leading the task force trying to dismantle mine. Were you sent here? Each word was a blade. Was this whole thing a setup? No. I stumbled forward. I left him 2 years ago. I didn't know about the task force, I swear. But you knew what he was. His hands clenched into fists. You knew he hunted people like me. I'm not with him anymore. I haven't spoken to him in... That doesn't matter. He stood, and the man who'd held me hours ago was gone. Your connection to him makes you a liability. If the Corsinis find out, if anyone finds out, they'll use it against me. Against us. Then we'll deal with it. There is no us, Claire. The words were final, brutal. There can't be. Tears burned my eyes. You don't mean that, don't I? He moved around the desk, and when he stopped in front of me, his expression was unreadable. I can't trust you, and in my world, that's the same as being dead. Dante. Please. Matteo will drive you back to the city tomorrow. His voice was flat. You'll be under surveillance, but you're free to go. I don't want to go. Too bad. He turned away, dismissing me. We're done. I stood there, shaking, shattered, and then I did the only thing I could. I ran. I locked myself in the guest suite and cried until there were no tears left. How had everything fallen apart so fast? Hours ago, I'd been in his arms, feeling something I'd never felt before, belonging. Now I was being cast out like a mistake, a liability, a lie he couldn't afford. But I hadn't lied, not about anything that mattered. David Brennan was a ghost from a life I'd escaped. I'd been 25, naive, blinded by his charm and the promise of stability. It took me a year to see the truth. That he cared more about his career than me, measured that every smile was calculated, every word a move, in a game I didn't know we were playing. When I'd found out he was investigating organized crime, using informants and wiretaps and tactics that felt dirty even if they were legal, I'd ended it. I couldn't be with someone whose ambition consumed everything, who saw people as case files instead of human beings. I'd rebuilt my life, become a teacher, found peace in simplicity. And then Dante Valenti had shattered it all. But even now, hurt and angry and terrified, I couldn't regret meeting him, because for the first time, I'd felt seen. A knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. I ignored it, but it came again, more insistent. "Claire," it was Matteo. "I need you to come with me." "I'm not going anywhere. It's not a request." His voice was urgent now, almost frightened. "Something's happened. Dante needs you." My heart stopped. I wrenched open the door. "What happened?" Matteo's face was ashen. "There's been an attack. He's hurt." I didn't ask questions. I just ran. They'd taken him to a private clinic on the estate grounds. A building I hadn't known existed, hidden beyond the eastern gardens. Matteo led me through sterile white hallways reeking of antiseptic, past guards with grim expressions, until we reached a room at the end. Dante lay on a hospital bed, his torso wrapped in bandages, an IV in his arm, and a doctor leaning over him with a needle and thread. "Jesus," I breathed. His eyes snapped to me, and even through the pain I saw surprise. "Why is she here?" "You kept asking for her," Matteo said quietly. "When they brought you in, you wouldn't let anyone touch you until—" "Get out." Dante's voice was weak, but still commanding. "All of you." The doctor protested, but one look from Dante silenced him. They filed out, leaving us alone, and I crossed to the bed on shaking legs. "What happened?" "Ambush." He winced as he shifted. 3 of Luca Corsini's men. Caught me at a warehouse inspection." His laugh was bitter. "Stupid. I was distracted." "By what?" His gaze met mine, and the vulnerability there made my chest ache. "You." I sank into the chair beside him. "You're an idiot." "I know. You sent me away." "I had to." "Why?" My voice broke. "Because of David?" "I'm not him, Dante. I'm not—" "I know." He reached for my hand, his grip weak but desperate. "I know you're not. But when I saw that file, when I realized the danger I'd put you in just by keeping you close, I panicked. So you pushed me away. It's what I do." His eyes closed. "Everyone I care about gets hurt, Claire. My mother, my men, and now you. I'm fine. You won't be if you stay." He opened his eyes, and they were haunted. "The Corsinis won't stop. And if they find out about your connection to Brennan, they'll use it. They'll hurt you to get to him, or hurt him to get to me. You'll be caught in the crossfire. Then let me fight. You don't know how. Teach me." I leaned closer, my voice fierce. "You keep saying I don't belong in your world, but I'm already in it, Dante. The moment you saved me, the moment I stayed, I chose this. I chose you." His jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do." I tightened my grip on his hand. "I see you. Not the mob boss, not the killer. The man who saves women in bars, who mourns his mother, who's so terrified of losing people he pushes them away before they can leave. I see you, and I'm not going anywhere." For a long moment he just stared at me. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not." I managed a shaky smile. "But you're stuck with me anyway." His hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek, and when he pulled me down to kiss him, It was soft and aching and full of everything he couldn't say. When we broke apart, he whispered, "If you stay, I can't protect you from everything." "I'm not asking you to." I rested my forehead against his. "I'm asking you to let me stand beside you." His eyes searched mine, and whatever he found there made him exhale slowly. "Okay." Relief flooded through me, ceased so intense I nearly collapsed. "But," he continued, his voice hardening, "we do this my way. You train. You learn how to protect yourself, and you follow my orders when things get dangerous." "I can do that." "Can you?" His gaze was sharp now, assessing. "Because the things I'm going to have to do, the choices I'll have to make, they're not going to be pretty, Claire. And if you stay, you'll see all of it." I thought about the man bleeding on the foyer floor that morning, the cold fury in Dante's eyes at the gala, the bandages wrapped around his torso from an ambush I knew he'd retaliate for with lethal precision. I thought about the blood on his hands, blood that would never wash clean, and I stayed anyway. "I can handle it," I said. His smile was sad, almost pitying. "I hope so." Because the truth was, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if loving him would save us or destroy us both. But as I sat beside him in that sterile room, his hand in mine, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was in too deep to turn back now. 3 days later, Dante was back on his feet, moving through the estate with the same lethal grace despite the doctor's protests. And true to his word, he began teaching me to survive in his world. I learned to shoot, how to grip a pistol, how to breathe through the recoil, how to hit a target center mass. I learned the layout of the estate, every exit, every safe room. I learned the names of his trusted men, the signs of betrayal, the way power shifted in the underworld like tides. But most importantly, I learned what he was capable of. The night Luca Corsini's body was found in the river, I knew Dante was responsible. And I said nothing. Because I'd made my choice. Now, I had to live with it. The retaliation came swiftly. 2 nights after Luca Corsini's body surfaced, the Corsini family struck back with brutal efficiency. They hit 3 of Dante's businesses in one night, an upscale restaurant in Soho, a shipping warehouse in Red Hook, and a private club in the financial district. Fires, gunshots, chaos. 6 of Dante's men were injured. 1 was dead. I watched him take the call in his office, his face carved from stone, and when he hung up, the silence was deafening. "They've declared war," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" He looked at me, and the exhaustion in his eyes was soul deep. "It means no one is safe. Not my men, not my businesses." His jaw clenched. "Not you." "Then we fight back." "We?" His laugh was bitter. "Claire, you've been here 3 weeks. You don't know what war looks like in my world." "Then show me." He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the internal battle, the part of him that wanted to shield me warring with the part that needed me to understand the monster he'd have to become. Finally, he nodded. "Come with me." He took me to a meeting I wasn't supposed to see. It was held in a warehouse on the outskirts of Brooklyn, the kind of place that didn't exist on any map. Inside, a long table was surrounded by men whose names I'd heard whispered in fear. Underbosses, capos, enforcers, the Valenti family's inner circle. I stood in the shadows as Dante addressed them, his voice cold and absolute. "The Corsinis think we're weak. They think the death of one spoiled prince will break us." His hands braced on the table, and every man in the room leaned forward. "They're wrong. We hit them harder. We take their territories, burn their businesses, make them bleed until they beg for mercy." "And if they retaliate again?" one of the older men asked. "Then we escalate." Dante's smile was razor sharp. "I want Enzo Corsini to watch everything he's built crumble. I want him to feel what it's like to lose." The men nodded, murmuring agreement, and I felt ice slide down my spine. This was the man I'd chosen. This was the world I'd agreed to stand beside him in. After the meeting, Dante found me outside, leaning against the SUV, trying to steady my breathing. "You okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. "Regret staying yet?" His tone was light, but I heard the genuine question beneath it. "No." I looked up at him. "But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Don't lose yourself in this." I stepped closer, my hand finding his. "Don't become so consumed by revenge that you forget why you're fighting." His expression softened and he pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored. "You," he murmured into my hair. "I'm fighting for you." "Then don't make me watch you destroy yourself." He pulled back just enough to look at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes was devastating. "I don't know if I can stop it, Claire. This is who I am." "No." I cupped his face. "This is what you do. It's not who you are." He kissed me then, desperate and aching, and I tasted the fear beneath his control, because he knew what I was asking was impossible. The war escalated over the next 2 weeks. The Corsinis hit a Valenti safe house. Dante retaliated by cutting off their supply lines. They bombed a warehouse. He took out 3 of their key lieutenants. It was brutal, bloody, and I watched Dante disappear further into the darkness with every passing day. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating unless I forced him. The light in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something cold and merciless, and I felt him slipping away even as I held him at night. I tried to pull him back, but the war had its claws in him. Until the night everything changed. I was in the library when Matteo burst in, his face pale. "We have a problem." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Brennan. Your ex." He thrust a tablet toward me and my blood turned to ice. On the screen was a news article. "Federal Task Force moves on Valenti organization. Indictments expected within days." And below it, a photo of David Brennan, looking every inch the hero prosecutor, flanked by FBI agents. "They're coming for Dante," Matteo said, "and they're using the Corsini War as justification. They're calling it gang violence, public endangerment." "Where is he?" "En route to a meeting with Enzo Corsini. They're trying to negotiate a truce before the feds move in." I was already moving. "Take me there." "Miss, I don't think—" "Now, Matteo." Something in my voice made him nod. The meeting was being held at a neutral location, an abandoned factory in Queens, surrounded by both families' soldiers, tension so thick it choked the air. I arrived just as Dante and Enzo faced each other in the center of the empty space, in their men flanking them like armies preparing for battle. "You've lost, Valenti," Enzo said, his voice echoing. "The feds are coming. Your empire is crumbling." "Not yet." Dante's voice was ice, "and when I go down, I'm taking you with me." "You'd rather destroy everything than surrender?" "Yes." I stepped out of the shadows. "No." Both men turned, and the shock on Dante's face would have been comical if the situation weren't so dire. "Claire, what the hell are you doing here?" I ignored him, walking forward until I stood between them. "This ends now," I said, looking at Enzo. "You want revenge for your son? Fine. But this war is destroying both families. The feds are circling, and if you don't stop, you'll both end up in prison, or dead." Enzo's eyes narrowed. "And why should I listen to you?" "Because I know something you don't." I took a breath, praying I was making the right choice. David Brennan, the prosecutor leading the task force, is my ex-fiancé. And I can talk to him. Dante's hand clamped around my wrist. "Claire, don't." "I can offer him a deal." I met Enzo's gaze. Cooperation, information, enough to take down the smaller players while keeping both families intact. But only if you stop this war. The silence was deafening. Enzo studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, He smiled. You'd betray your lover for peace? I'd save him from himself. Dante's grip tightened, and when I looked at him, I saw betrayal and fury, and something that looked like heartbreak. You have no idea what you just did, he whispered. Yes, I said quietly. I do. And I walked away, praying he'd forgive me, praying we'd both survive what came next. The meeting with David Brennan was held in a coffee shop in neutral territory, Midtown Manhattan, surrounded by oblivious tourists and business people who had no idea that two worlds were colliding over lattes and pastries. I arrived first, my hands shaking as I gripped my cup. I hadn't seen David in 2 years, and the thought of facing him again made bile rise in my throat. When he walked in, he looked exactly the same, tall, clean-cut, with that politician's smile that had once made me feel safe. Now it just made me feel cold. Claire. He slid into the seat across from me, his eyes scanning my face. You look different. I am different. I heard you've been keeping interesting company. His smile sharpened. Dante Valenti. Really? I thought you had better taste. I didn't come here to discuss my personal life. No. You came to make a deal. He leaned back, studying me. You want me to ease off the Valenti investigation in exchange for information. Am I right? I shouldn't have been surprised he'd figured it out. David had always been 3 steps ahead. Yes. And what makes you think I'd agree to that? Because you care more about your conviction rate than justice. I met his gaze steadily. You always have. And if I give you enough smaller players, enough evidence to make headlines, you'll call it a win and move on. His jaw tightened. You think you know me. I do know you. I leaned forward. I know you'll do whatever it takes to advance your career. So take the deal, David. Get your headlines, your promotions. Just leave Dante alone. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, you're in love with him. It wasn't a question. That's not relevant. It is, actually. His expression hardened. Because it means you're compromised. And it makes me wonder, did Valenti send you here? Is this whole thing a setup? He doesn't even know I'm here. That was only half a lie. Dante knew I was meeting David. He'd been furious when I told him, had tried to stop me. But he didn't know what I was offering. David studied me for another moment, then pulled out a folder. I'll consider your offer, but I need something first. He slid the folder across the table. Proof that you're serious. Names, locations, financial records. Give me enough to take down at least 5 key players in the Corsini organization, and I'll ease off Valenti. I stared at the folder, my heart pounding. This was it. In the line I couldn't uncross. If I did this, I'd be betraying the underworld code, becoming an informant, painting a target on my back. But if I didn't, Dante would go to prison. Or die. I opened the folder. I'll give you what you need, I said quietly. But when this is over, you leave us alone. Completely. Deal. I left the coffee shop feeling like I'd sold my soul. Dante was waiting for me when I got back to the estate. He stood in the foyer, arms crossed, his expression thunderous. Did you do it? I didn't pretend not to understand. Yes. Jesus, Claire. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. Do you have any idea what you've just done? The Corsinis will know it was us. They'll come after you. I gave him their names, not yours. I moved closer. David agreed. He's going after the Corsinis. Big, and he'll leave your organization alone. For how long? He spun back to face me. A year? 2? Until he needs another win? His voice cracked. You've made yourself a target, Claire, for me. I know. And you did it anyway? Yes. He stared at me, and I saw the war in his eyes, fury and gratitude and fear all tangled together. Why? He whispered. Because I love you. The words hung between us, raw and undeniable. His expression crumbled. You shouldn't. His voice was hoarse. I'm poison, Claire. I'll destroy you. Then destroy me. I closed the distance between us, my hands framing his face. But don't push me away. Not again. He broke. His mouth crashed onto mine, desperate and consuming, and I kissed him back with everything I had. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and when he lifted me, and I wrapped my legs around his waist without hesitation. He carried me upstairs to his room, kicking the door shut behind us, and when he laid me on the bed, the way he looked at me, like I was salvation and damnation wrapped in one, made my heart ache. I love you, he said, his voice breaking. God help me, I love you. Then show me. And he did. He worshipped every inch of my skin, his touch both reverent and possessive, like he was trying to memorize me. When he finally moved inside me, it was slow and deep and achingly tender, and I felt the walls between us shatter completely. We broke apart and came back together over and over, whispered confessions tangling with gasped breaths, and when we finally collapsed in a tangle of limbs and sheets, I knew with absolute certainty this was worth it. All of it. We lay in the darkness, his arm around me, my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. What happens now? I asked quietly. David will move on the Corsinis. There'll be arrests, trials. Enzo will probably go to prison. He paused. And we'll have peace. For a while. And after? After, we figure out how to live. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. You and me. Maybe we leave the city, start over somewhere new. I lifted my head to look at him. You'd leave all this? For you? His gaze was steady. Yes. Hope bloomed in my chest, fragile and terrifying. What about your family? Your responsibilities? I'll find someone to take over. Matteo, maybe. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. I've spent my whole life doing what was expected of me. For once, I want to choose something for myself. And you choose me, I choose you. I kissed him then, soft and slow, and for the first time I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could have a future. But peace in Dante's world never lasted long. The next morning, everything fell apart. I woke to find the bed empty, voices shouting downstairs. I threw on clothes and ran, my heart in my throat. Dante stood in the foyer, surrounded by his men, all of them armed and tense. What happened? He turned, and the look on his face stopped me cold. Enzo Corsini was found dead this morning, shot in his own home. My stomach dropped. By who? We don't know, but the feds think it was me. His jaw clenched. They're issuing a warrant for my arrest, right now. But you didn't? It doesn't matter. He crossed to me, gripping my shoulders. Someone set me up, Claire. And if I go to prison, everything we sacrificed was for nothing. Then we run. Where? They'll hunt me anywhere. Then we fight. Claire. His eyes were anguished. There's no winning this. Not anymore. And as sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, I realized he was right. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The sirens grew louder. Dante's men moved with practiced efficiency, barricading doors, checking weapons, transforming the mansion into a fortress in minutes. But I could see it in their faces. They knew this was the end. We can hold them off for maybe an hour, Matteo said grimly. After that, you surrender. Dante's voice was steel. All of you. Tell them I forced you to stay. Cooperate. Yet I won't have your blood on my hands. Boss. That's an order. Dante's gaze swept over the men who'd served him faithfully. You've given me everything. Let me give you this. One by one they nodded, and I saw the grief in their eyes. Dante turned to me. There's a tunnel, runs from the wine cellar to a garage a mile from here. Mateo will take you. No. His jaw clenched. Claire, I'm not leaving you. I stepped closer, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. We're in this together, remember? If you stay, you'll be arrested. Charged as an accessory. I don't care. I do. His hands cupped my face, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I won't let you throw away your life for me. You already gave me a life worth living. I covered his hands with mine. I was sleepwalking before I met you, Dante. Going through the motions. You woke me up. You made me feel alive. By dragging you into hell. By loving me. I kissed him softly. So if this is the end, I'm facing it with you. For a moment he just held me, his forehead pressed to mine. Then he whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I know. I managed a shaky smile. You're pretty great too. His laugh was broken. Even now you're making jokes. Someone has to. The front gates exploded inward. The sound was deafening, metal shrieking, alarms blaring, and through the windows I saw them. Dozens of federal agents in tactical gear, moving like a black tide toward the mansion. "They're coming!" one of Dante's men shouted. Dante pulled me toward the back of the house, his hand tight around mine. We ran through corridors I'd walked 100 times. I passed rooms filled with memories, the library where we'd talked for hours, the garden where he'd told me about his mother, the bedroom where we'd found each other in the darkness. We burst into the wine cellar, and Mateo was already there, the tunnel entrance open, a narrow passage disappearing into blackness. "Go," Dante said, pushing me toward it. "Not without you." "I'm coming. I just need to—" The door above us shattered. Agents poured down the stairs, guns raised, shouting commands. Dante shoved me behind him, his body a shield, and I saw Mateo raise his weapon. "Stand down!" David Brennan's voice cut through the chaos. He descended the stairs slowly, flanked by agents, his expression grim. When his gaze landed on me, something like regret flickered there. "Claire," one step away from him. "No. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You promised." My voice broke. "You said you'd leave him alone." That was before Enzo Corsini was murdered. David's gaze shifted to Dante. "We have evidence. Ballistics, witnesses. You're done, Valenti." "I didn't kill him." Dante's voice was calm, controlled. "But I know who did." Everyone froze. "What are you talking about?" David demanded. "Luca Corsini isn't dead." Dante's smile was bitter. "I faked it. Paid off the coroner. Planted a body. He's been in hiding, and when he heard his father was negotiating peace, he decided to take control the only way he knew how, by killing Enzo and framing me." The silence was deafening. "You have proof of this?" David asked. "I have Luca. He's locked in a safe house 20 miles from here." Dante pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos before tossing it to David. "Coordinates are in there, along with a full confession he gave me 3 hours ago." David stared at the phone, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at me. "You knew about this?" "No." And that was the truth. I had no idea Dante had been playing this game. David turned back to Dante. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm giving you the real killer. A living heir to the Corsini empire who murdered his own father." Dante's gaze was steady. "That's a better headline than taking me down, and you know it." I watched David calculate, saw the gears turning. He wanted Dante in prison, but he wanted a guaranteed win more. Finally, he nodded. "We'll check it out. But if you're lying, I'm not." David gestured to his men and they retreated up the stairs, leaving just the three of us. "You're lucky, Valenti," David said quietly. "She saved your life twice now." "I know." David looked at me one last time. "I hope he's worth it, Claire." "He is." Then he was gone, and Dante pulled me into his arms so tightly I could barely breathe. "How long have you known?" I whispered. "Since the night Enzo died. I had people watching the Corsini compound." He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. "I was going to tell you, but I needed to be sure." "You could have warned me." "I know." His thumb traced my cheek. "I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry for everything." "Stop apologizing." I kissed him, soft and lingering. "We're alive. That's all that matters. For now." 2 months later, the estate was quiet now. Most of Dante's men had been reassigned or retired, and the mansion felt less like a fortress and more like a home. Luca Corsini had been arrested and charged with patricide. The Corsini Empire collapsed without its leaders, absorbed by smaller families. The Valenti organization survived, but Dante kept his word. He stepped back, letting Matteo take over day-to-day operations while he focused on legitimate businesses. And me? I went back to teaching, but now I came home to Dante every night, to a life that was messy and complicated and nothing like I'd imagined, but it was ours. We stood in the garden, his arms around me from behind, watching the sunset paint the sky gold and crimson. "What are you thinking?" he murmured. "That I never thought I'd be here." I leaned into him. "That I never thought I'd find this? Happiness? Love." I turned in his arms. Real, messy, dangerous love. His smile was soft. The darkness in his eyes finally eased by something like peace. Was it worth it? I thought about everything we'd been through. The fear, the violence, the impossible choices. I thought about the whisper in a bar that had changed everything. "Yes," I said, "every second." He kissed me then, slow and sweet, and I tasted forever on his lips, because this was our story, born in shadows, forged in fire, and tempered by a love that refused to break. And no matter what came next, we'd face it together. Always.